If you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. My name is Andy Garwood, and if you had asked me who I was before I came to Vertical, I would have told you I'm a Christian, I'm a manager at Chick-fil-A, I enjoy that, and I'm an artist. But I could tell you more fun facts about myself, but I didn't feel like I understood who I was. I wanted to know who I am so I could face those 100 battles. Oh, there we go. During this last year at Vertical, I put together a purpose statement that I tried to apply to every aspect of my life. It contains 3 different phrases that each go along with a different word that I use to define myself. Starting off with optimism, constantly learning. This is my worldview. I always want to look for the best in every situation. Creativity, never growing stagnant. I always want to learn from my mistakes. And finally, leadership. I've always felt like a leader, and I want to make sure that I'm leading with Christ's love. I'm extroverted, that's my personality. I love working with people, helping other people to become the best version of themselves. Service is very important to who I am. Keep pressing the one. But why am I this way? Well, God created me with a purpose in mind. He gave me all these different aspects, these strengths, even my weaknesses, all pour into who he knitted me together as. I believe that he gave me all these things so I can fight these 100 battles. I'm a child of God. That's who I am. I was given a creative mindset, an optimistic outlook, and a leadership personality so that I can better be a disciple, an image bearer of Christ, and a better steward of his creation and of the gifts he's given me. Coming into Vertical, I came in as a Christian. I felt like I had a fairly strong faith, but I wanted to know more about what that meant to be a Christian. I wanted to know, am I living a Christian life? How can I grow my faith? And I knew that I wanted to be in a Christian environment. I felt like that would help me grow. And I did grow. In fact, I learned a lot about my identity in Christ. My faith grew from a more cold, logic and facts-based faith of just having the book knowledge to a more of a relationship with Christ. That became my priority. I had better awareness of who I am in Christ. I grew from being stagnant in my faith to actively sharing my faith with my friends. And I had better defense and understanding for what it is that I really believe. I also grew in more practical senses. I learned how I work in a team. I learned how do I apply my different strengths and work with the weaknesses that I have. And I started to dabble in what careers am I suited for. Because when I started, I didn't have a goal with a career. I vaguely wanted to go into cybersecurity. I figured it pays well. I enjoy working in tech. I can't be a Chick-fil-A manager forever. Just not practical. But I didn't feel driven towards this goal of cybersecurity. It didn't mean much of anything to me other than enjoying technology. And so I needed to understand further what drives me. During the first semester, we did a lot of self-assessments. We learned a lot about who we are as people, what gifts we were given, and where our weaknesses lie. And I learned that, wow, I really am a leader. I really do flourish when I am guiding other people towards their achievements. When I am working with other people, that's where I do my best. And working on my own is where I do not. And so now that I knew myself, I was ready to tackle the 100 battles, right? You really would think so. But by the start of the second semester, I was in a very rough place emotionally. I had prayed to God for stronger faith and for perseverance. And he gave me opportunities to be faithful through and to persevere through. It's funny how that works. Through all of this, between the semesters, I saw God moving in my life a lot more actively than I ever had before. And I was talking to him more than I ever had before. Through the gap between the semesters, my relationship with him grew. But everything else felt like it was falling apart. See, in the first half of the second semester, we started working on building our career paths. We decided where we want to go in the future. We started setting goals for ourselves and heading towards those goals. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I tried to keep moving forward, keep getting assignments done, and I did for a while. But I was also working full time the entire time, and I really didn't feel like I had a direction to where I was going. So I started to burn up, and I almost gave up. I started spiraling into negative thought patterns. I would tell myself that because I didn't have a direction, I was failing. Because I didn't have any answers when anybody asked me what I wanted to do, I felt like I was failing. Because I couldn't see down the road where I wanted to go, I felt like that made me a failure. But I was reminded of my purpose statement, never grow stagnant. I know I'm not a failure because I'm still learning. Even if I had to start at the very beginning of this semester again, I wouldn't have failed because I still learned so much. This all culminated in Mr. Wheeler's personal development class, where he taught us to replace lies with truth. And the lies that I was telling myself about failing, I replaced with this fact. I am a child of God. He created me with a purpose. If I can't see the purpose, that doesn't mean I don't have one. So with this new mindset, I was able to step back from the issue itself. I was able to look at it from the outside. And I did what I called an intentional deconstruction project. I took apart every aspect of my life, from top to bottom, bottom to top, hobbies, school, and work. I found every responsibility that I had taken on or had been given, and I evaluated whether or not it was worth holding on to. Did I need to drop anything? And it turns out I did. I dropped a lot. I dropped hours at work. I dropped a lot of homework as well. And I dropped a bunch of my hobbies to basically start from a clean slate. And it helped immensely. I had a lot less of a burden to carry going forward. But I still didn't feel like I had a goal going forward. At this point, I was reminded of the story in Matthew of Peter walking on water. And the story has stuck with me all year, but I didn't really know why until recently. See, Peter took his first step onto the water in faith. He had his eyes on Jesus. He knew that if he was walking towards Jesus, he would be fine. And he was fine. He took his first steps forward onto the water. But then once he looked into the wind, that's when he started to sink. And I felt like I was in a place like that. I didn't have a path forward. I didn't have any goals I was working towards, and I was okay with that. This presentation almost ended here, with me saying I have no specific goals for my future, but I'm still walking forward in faith. That's why I'm still going, is because I have faith. But I realized something. I stepped back and I looked at taking each step almost blindly. I couldn't see the road ahead of me, and I couldn't see a goal down the road, but I knew God was going to be with me the entire time. So I kept taking steps over and over and over. And I realized I was still looking into the wind. The reason I wasn't hitting my goals, and the reason things kept falling apart, wasn't because there was no goal and there was no path ahead of me. It's because I was still looking into the wind. All of these goals were set by me, for me, and not a single time did I stop to consider, what is God's will for me? Where is God trying to bring me specifically? How can I use my gifts, my strengths, to glorify Him? In the last week, in fact, last 5 days, I believe, so much has fallen into place just at the last second. I barely got to add this slide before today. I have discovered a career path that I am absolutely thrilled by. I have an end goal of solutions architect. I have the entry position of integration specialist. I have goals to work towards over the summer. All these things that I didn't have just a week ago because I was still holding on to the reins. But when I let go of the reins, things just kind of started to work. Whoop. Anyways, what I realized is that Sun Tzu lied. I didn't need to worry about the 100 battles because I knew myself or because I knew my enemies, but because God had my back. I realized that I needed to take steps in faith to become who God wanted me to be. Thank you all so much for being here, and if anybody has questions, I'm ready. Yes.
Grandma has a question. So now, would it be worth finding a mentor?
That is absolutely something that is on my docket for the summer. I have a whole list of goals that I'm working on over the summer, and one of those is specifically finding a paid internship, apprenticeship in this field. And part of my process that I'm planning is finding somebody who works in this field to mentor me. Yes?
You said before that you realized at some point that being a continuing manager at Chick-fil-A wasn't feasible. How did you come to that decision, and did it frighten you that now you had to come up with something else?
Yeah, so that was actually something I spent a lot of time dwelling on because as I started working at Chick-fil-A, it was my first job, still is, I'm still there. I fell more and more in love with the work I was doing and the people I was working with. And it did terrify me to have to leave it behind. But I came to the conclusion of needing to step away from it because, on a practical sense, for where I want to be in the future, being a manager wouldn't sustain me from an economic standpoint. But I was thrilled to find these positions at the end because they also take in my skills of training other people, working with teams, helping to build other people up that I love doing at Chick-fil-A, just under a different context.
Okay.
Yes.
I really love that you found a career that you want to settle on. I want to hear more about this roadmap for the summer that was so good. Tell me the first 3 goals that you're hoping to accomplish this summer with the roadmap.
Absolutely. So it's funny you say first 3 because I have 3 specific ones. First is completing 3 specific certification courses over the summer. I have a couple of 3-month courses, a couple of 6-month courses, all of which I've done research into finding what certifications would help me from a knowledge standpoint in this career and what would help me from a resume standpoint for this career. Um, Off the top of my head, I know Google IT is one of them. I know there's an AI usage one. Don't remember what my third one was, but I have like a dozen set aside. 3 is the bare minimum for me to count this summer as a success. From there, finding a mentor in this to get towards working in this environment. And then my third goal is by the end of the summer, I want to be in this position. So I'm doing research into where are job openings, what connections do I have right now that would get me closer to this, that process. Does that make sense? Okay, cool.
Can I ask one more question? For you are building your network, so finding a mentor, and then also finding people who have this job opening. How are you doing that? How are you finding these people?
Yeah, so I'm starting by talking to people I know. My sensei at karate, actually, he works in cybersecurity specifically. And so I've been talking to him from the beginning of this semester about my potential careers. And I recently did talk to him about specifically solutions architect and integration specialist. And he said he's worked with several of both of those positions, and he will get me their contacts to talk to them. I believe it was mentioned earlier the informational interviews. I will be setting those up to get that information. That's my first step, at least.
Perfect. And then just think about your connectors as well. Like, who knows those people?
Absolutely.
Where these people hang out? So networking events, all of that. But this is awesome.
Like, anybody else? Yes.
You were beating yourself up because you said you felt like a failure because you didn't have a career path figured out yet. And that's not a failure at all, I don't think in your case. I think because what I see you is you are broadly skilled. You're skilled in the technological side of your brain, which is also very creative, but it's two totally different tracks, in the way we think. And in your curiosity about things, I think what could have been wrestling in you is, okay, I can go this direction, but that means now I can't do these things. I still want to do these things because you've just got this curiosity about so many things.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I do. I'm 56, trying to still figure out what I want to do when I grow up. And so what was it? You had a career path. What did you identify in yourself? What did you see in yourself, in your interests, your skills, that finally helped you decide, yeah, this is where I want to focus because this fits with me? How?
I think it was the comparison to working as a manager at Chick-fil-A. I tried to identify what it was that made me want to stay at Chick-fil-A, and I realized it was the service I was doing for other people, but more the training of new hires or new team leads or even new managers. That's the aspect of it that I really enjoyed, was teaching people things that I knew. And especially with integration specialist, it's a process that involves learning a bunch of new things, which in my purpose statement, never stop learning, is the last tenet of it. So that's very important to me, is that I'm always learning new things, and then I get to share that knowledge with other people. That's what drew me to this. I think we have time for one more question? No? Yes? No? All right.
This is a question. This one, I love when people who take a difficult like that and really put it on its head. That's a phase that extremely similarly from my own career path. And I just wanted to make sure that that's the have you had.
Absolutely. Yes.
I appreciate the fact that they reference to cybersecurity because they require such importance that are being
All right. Wrap it up? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.